In this episode, I'm going to be telling you guys how to apply for your permanent residency in New Zealand. So if you're interested in knowing about PR in New Zealand, maybe you are already in New Zealand on a resident visa, or you plan to apply for a resident visa to go to New Zealand and eventually apply for a permanent resident visa, this is the episode and content for you. So if you're interested in this topic, I suggest you give me just 1 second. I'm gonna dash off to the market, and you guys already know I'm gonna come back with more.
You know the way I do it when I drop lyrical. Anytime I spit lyrical, philosophical. All the niggas mimical, but they stare still on taking literal. Punchlines collateral. Maximum damage.
Hello, Chronicles. Hello, YouTube. How are you all doing today? It's still your value-based King Fuse from Fuse Chronicles here with another valuable content for you guys on how to apply for your permanent residency in New Zealand. But before I get into today's episode, I need to address the huge elephant in the room. It came to my attention literally yesterday that some people are going around our social media platforms, the platforms on social media that we are active in, and they are labeling what we do, the content we push out, they're labeling it a scam, okay? Now, first of all, I do not work for the immigration services of any country. I am not a travel agent. I do not claim to be a travel agent. I do not claim to be a representative of any immigration service the world over. I am just a man who worked for an embassy. I worked for an embassy for a prolonged period of time. I worked in the commercial section of that embassy. I also worked in the consular section of that embassy. I was privy to a lot of visa interviews for lots and lots of embassies in the country I worked in that circle for, okay? Now, the communication document that embassies use to communicate with governments and other embassies is known as a note verbal. I was instrumental in preparing lots and lots of note verbals that I sent to the US Embassy, to the UK High Commission, to the Brazilian Embassy, to the ministries and parastatals in the country I worked for. Now, the information I was able to garner while working in that circle is what I use to present you guys with the information in these episodes that we drop. Backed with the information I get from immigration services officials that I usually communicate with or make contact with to find out whether information on their websites are valid. I will never at this time or any time in the future request you guys to send me money as maybe consultation charges or a charge to engage me to show you how to do XYZ things in your visa application or whatever immigration application you might want to tender to whatever embassy or high commission located in your country. So when people label me scam, I want you guys to see it as people who are just bitter that a brother is on the come up, okay? I am not making up this information, neither am I charging you guys. I get this information directly from the immigration services of these countries, contacts we have in these offices worldwide that give us top-notch information about all these visas and immigration policies for the countries that we put out to you guys, okay? I don't even know why I'm wasting time, but I know when you scroll through our feeds on the social media platforms that we're present in, you're going to see some of these messages. I want you guys to bear this in mind. And sometimes we put out videos on TikTok or on Instagram that tells you or redirects you to this platform, which is YouTube, so that you can watch an in-depth, extensive video of that content that drops on that platform. This is because on TikTok and Instagram, they only take videos that are 10 minutes long. On Twitter, they take videos that are 1 minute, 30 seconds, or 2 minutes long, so they cannot take 15 minutes videos or even 20 minutes videos, and usually our content on YouTube are usually between 14 minutes, sometimes to as much as 45 minutes. So we cannot put these videos on those social media platforms. So we usually refer you guys to come back here. So when people start to accuse me or accuse what we're doing as being fraudulent or a scam, it just beats my mind. So I want you guys to bear this in mind going forward. Now please, let's get back to how to get your PR in New Zealand. If you're looking to get a PR in New Zealand, there's certain things that you need to bear in mind. Number one is you need to be a person with a resident visa. And your resident visa must be at least 2 years and above old of you being present, actually being present in New Zealand. Now, if you get a resident visa to New Zealand and then you leave the country and travel to Ecuador or travel to Colombia, which is your home country, or to Nigeria or to the Sudan or South Africa or Kenya or Ethiopia or the Philippines, China, or whatever country that you are from originally, and you decide to stay there for the next 3 years without even turning up in New Zealand, you are not going to be eligible for permanent residency in New Zealand. You need to have a resident visa on or before the 9th of September 2021. Now, why the 9th of December 2021? Now, this is because due to the COVID pandemic, everything that had to do with immigrating to New Zealand was put on hold. So the process was frozen and no applications were being accepted. And even the applications that were accepted before that time were not being processed. They were just left fallow and dormant in their systems. So from the 9th September 2021, the Immigration Services New Zealand started receiving applications from people the world over, particularly those who already have resident visa and were already in New Zealand. Now, there's some people who had stayed in New Zealand for 2 years and above, but maybe had to travel out of the country for family-related issues in their home country, so they were not able to be in New Zealand by the 9th September 2021. Now, these people also are eligible to apply for PR in New Zealand. Now, they have started processing permanent residency for people who are applying for one. But the deadline for this application, the deadline for this window for the processing of permanent residency for people in New Zealand ends on the 31st of July 2022, this month. 31st of July this month, 2022. So by the 31st of July 2022, you must have put in your permanent residence visa application. Now, I put this information out there right now because I know there's some people that do not watch our videos to the very end. And it's insane when you're looking to know about a particular visa stream category or how to access a particular visa to get into a particular country. I always recommend that you watch these videos to the end because valuable, actionable tips are usually going to be positioned sometime down the line in these videos, and just by skipping it or logging off, you might miss that tip or that hack on how to get approved for your visa application. So I had to put this information now, so those who are going to log off already know that there's a deadline. It started from the 9th of September last year, 2021, and it's going to end 31st July, which is this month, 2022. So you have to have applied for a resident visa and have stayed in New Zealand for 2 years and above, or you have a resident visa already before the 9th of September 2021, and you're going to have to put in your permanent resident visa application on or before the 31st July 2022. Now, all this talk of permanent residency in New Zealand, why do I need a permanent residency? Fuse, I am in New Zealand. Why do I need this stuff? My resident visa gives me 5 years, 10 years to stay in New Zealand. Why do I need permanent residency? I work in a good job. I can move to any company I want to work with because I have the New Zealand resident permit. I can do whatever I want. Why do I need this? Dude, there are loads of benefit attached to owning or having a permanent New Zealand residency. Number one, in Australia, there is a visa category known as the New Zealand visa. Can you beat that? Can you beat that stuff? There's a whole category of visa to Australia that is devoted to people coming from New Zealand. Now, that visa category gives you permission and opportunity to work indefinitely in Australia. So even that alone is enough reason for you to want to get a permanent residency in New Zealand. And there are other countries that have this agreement with New Zealand that also offer you the opportunity to work indefinitely in those countries. Do you get it? Now the question is, but Fuse, now what do I need? Okay, you sold me on this. You sold me on PR in New Zealand. What do I need? What do I need to apply for a permanent residency in New Zealand? First of all, you need to download the online application form from the Immigration New Zealand's website. When you download the application, you're going to have to fill it, or maybe you're not an online or a computer person and you say, Fuse, I'm old school. I'm old, I'm 55 years old, I'm 65, 70 years old. I don't want to do this online. Yes, you can also download and print the online application form and hand fill it and go to the Immigration New Zealand office close to your city in New Zealand. Now, people outside New Zealand cannot apply for permanent residency. It's not possible. The system is not made to accommodate applications from outside New Zealand. You have to be in New Zealand and you have to have applied for a resident visa. You already are on a visa in New Zealand and you stayed in the country for over 2 years, but you've applied for a resident visa, or you already own or are a holder of a resident visa while in New Zealand and you stayed for 2 years and above. You are working. You're working already, so you're settled in the country, and you are a professional working in a profession that is on the scarce list of professionals. So there are jobs that are very hard to fill in most countries. You are someone operating as a professional in those jobs. You are already qualified. Every other requirements does not matter to you. You're already qualified to put in an application for a permanent residency. Now, when you filled your permanent resident visa application form, whether offline or online, you need to pay the application fee, which is 2,160 New Zealand dollars. Inside this 2,160 New Zealand dollars is divided. The application fee itself is $1,330. There's $1,330 for the application fee, and there's an immigration levy, which is 830 New Zealand dollars. You need to pay this money for your application to be processed. If you don't pay this money, your application is just going to be rejected out the gate. You're just going to reject you. When they get your application and they don't see evidence of proof of payment for an application fee, you're going to be rejected right there. Now, there are countries that are exempt from paying a visa or a permanent resident visa application fee. If you are from Japan, if you are Japanese and you are trying to put in an application for a permanent resident visa in New Zealand, you are exempt from paying the application fee. You don't need to pay it. All you need to do is to fill out an online application form or offline application form, submit it in the Immigration New Zealand website, or go to the office in your city in New Zealand and submit it, and you are going to be processed. If you are successful, if a decision comes out and you're successful, then you become a permanent resident in New Zealand. Permanent residents in New Zealand get unbridled access to come into the country and go out as they please. There are numerous benefits to people who have permanent residency in New Zealand. Now, you're going to ask me, Fuse, what about my wife, or I am the wife who's applying, who's the primary applicant in this permanent residency visa application process? What about my husband? Now, partners of primary applicants and your dependent children. Now, dependent children have to be 24 years and below. So 24 years, 23, 22, instead of 24, 25. So you must be 24 years and below to be classed as a dependent minor who is going with a primary applicant. All partners and dependents permanent resident visa applications have to be submitted together with the primary applicant's permanent resident visa application, or it can be submitted after. But the permanent or the primary applicant must have put in an application first. The primary applicant for the permanent residency in New Zealand has to have put in his permanent resident visa application first. Then his partner and dependents can put theirs in on a later date. The partners and dependents cannot put in their application before the primary applicant unless they have a principal, a non-principal exemption. A non-principal exemption gives them the right and permission to put in their application before the primary applicant. This usually is in a case where maybe a primary applicant has been in New Zealand for a long time and had an intention of putting in an application, but maybe he dies or there's a casualty or something that affects the primary applicant and is unable to make this decision by himself. Then the partners and dependents can actually get or apply for a non-principal exemption and put in their applications before the primary applicant. There are certain visa streams that grant applicants resident visa status in New Zealand. Now, if you're going to New Zealand on a visa category known as the skilled migrant visa, this visa category grants you residency in New Zealand. If you're going with the essential workers work visa or a religious work visa, this visa category also grants you resident visaship in, is that a word? Resident visaship, is that a word? It grants you resident visa status while in New Zealand. Some other visa category are this critical purpose work visa or long-term skill shortage work visa. Now, these are visas that grants you long stay in New Zealand because your skill or your profession is lacking in New Zealand. Now, the other visa categories that grants you resident visa status in New Zealand, you can find these other categories by going to the Fuse Chronicles website, where we itemize and highlight everything you need to know about PR in New Zealand. It's already there and it's ready for you to just go in and find out all you need to know. Now guys, I need to put this out there really quickly. Resident visa in New Zealand is work dependent. You cannot plan to go to New Zealand because you want to be a tourist or you just want to be a visitor and be granted resident visa. It's impossible. It's for people that are going to help. People that are going to help improve certain sectors or improve certain companies or help benefit the country at large. People who are workers. These are people who are granted one or two forms of different categories of resident visa status in New Zealand. Now, if you're going on a short stay in New Zealand or you're going as a student to New Zealand, you are not going to be eligible to be on a path to resident visa. So you cannot say, oh, I'm on a student visa or I'm visiting the New Zealand for 3 months. Now I want to apply for a permanent residency or I want to apply for a resident visa. You are not going to get it. In order for you to be eligible to become a resident of New Zealand by applying for a resident visa, you need to change your visa status from a short stay or a student visa to any of the other visa categories, maybe like a skilled migrant visa, maybe like an essential work visa, maybe like a critical purpose work visa, or a long stay skill shortage visa, any of these other visa categories, you need to switch or apply for a change of status from student to study visa to any of the other ones to be in line to be granted a resident visa. Do you guys get it? Are you getting information? Are you getting value? Are you getting value in this video? If you are, please, I beg you, go down and smash that subscribe button, okay? Smash it, particularly if you're interested in moving to other countries to work, to study, to live. We come through with contents that are in this particular niche, what is it? We come through with topics that are in this niche for you to know how to apply for the appropriate visa that is customized for you. So go down and subscribe. And if this video is valuable and you want to get notified when we drop future videos like this one, then click the button next to the subscription button, which is the notification bell that keeps you notified when we drop future videos like this one. And if you're getting a bang for your buck, if you're getting value, why don't you do us a favor by giving this video a like? It helps us a lot because it tells the YouTube algorithm that you found this video meaningful and valuable, and you're going to find more people just like you all around the world to show these videos to, okay? So give us a like. And if you have family members who are interested in securing a resident visa to New Zealand, or already in New Zealand and they've been living there for 5 years, for 2 years, for 3 years, for 10 years, and you're not yet permanent residents, what are they doing? Share this video with them so that they know what to do. They stay guided on the right information and the decision-making process going forward, okay? Now let's move on back to this content. There is a visa category known as the new open work visa. It's known as the new open work visa. Now, the new open work visa is a visa category that grants applicants resident visa status while in New Zealand. It gives them the permission and the right to switch employers, so they can decide to get to the country on a new open work visa, get that residency, get the resident visa status instated, and they work for this employer. They don't like it, they move to the next one, to the next one, to the next one. However, this does not put them in line for permanent residency in New Zealand, because if you are going to be granted permanent residency in New Zealand, you need to have been working in a specific job for a specific employer for at least 2 years and above to be granted permanent residency in New Zealand. Permanent residents are people that have been known over time. They have a track record of offering something to certain sectors or part of the New Zealand economy that helps to boost it by virtue of GDP and every other KPI or key performance index used to quantify or qualify progress in any economy. So moving from company to company or employer to employer is not classed as you contributing meaningfully while in this country. It's possible that you traveled or you moved to New Zealand with your partner and your children, and at the time when you were moving or when you were being granted a resident visa to come into New Zealand, your kids were maybe 24 years old, and between the 9th of September 2021 to July 2022, they turned 25. They are still eligible to put in application for a permanent resident visa in New Zealand. They're covered, they're eligible. However, if maybe before 9th of September 2021 or maybe after July 31st, 2022, they turn 25, then it might be a little bit tricky. What they need to do is to apply for a different category of the resident visa that gives them longer stay in the country and gives them more flexibility to travel out and travel in whenever they want. Now you might be asking, but Fuse, I know about the application process, I know that I can fill it online or offline, I know about the fee related to applying for a New Zealand resident visa. What about the requirement? If I want to apply for a permanent resident visa in New Zealand, what documents, what are the requirements? What requirement do I need to meet to be eligible? What supporting documents do I need? Number one, you need a health care certification. You need a health certificate that shows that you are in good health. You don't have any kidney problems, so you're not going through dialysis, you don't have tuberculosis, you're not ill in any way, shape, or form, and you are healthy. Why? Because if you're granted permanent residency in New Zealand, you are seen as someone who is going to be instrumental in helping boost the economy in New Zealand. So sick people cannot do this. So if you're sick alone and you get that health certificate that shows that you're sick, you're going to be denied. But the beautiful thing is, if you get well and you can get another certificate that shows that you are healthy, the second certificate that shows that you are healthy in a particular area that you were sick or ill from before is known as the limited health certificate. And it shows you've recovered from that illness. Then you can apply or put in another application for permanent residency and be granted. So the first certificate you're going to present or put forward to the Immigration New Zealand is known as a general health certificate. That one, a general test is going to be done. In that one, they're going to know that, oh, this person has this kidney problem, person has tuberculosis, whatever. When you get well and you get healed of whatever is causing you sickness, you can get a limited health certificate that shows them that you've recovered from this, and while you do that, you put in another permanent residence visa application and it will be granted. You would have to put in a character certificate. Now, this is very tricky because the character certificate is not going to be put in by you. Yes, you're going to put in a character certificate that you've gotten from your country that says, oh, this person is well, this person is not in, this person does not have a run-in with the law. But the Immigration New Zealand is also going to seek the services or engage the services of the police in New Zealand. They are going to investigate your background to show that you're not a troublemaker, to show that you don't violate the law. Now, these people could reach out to your home country to get your history while in Chile, in Colombia, in Nigeria, in South Africa, in Sudan, in Zimbabwe, in the Philippines, in Germany, that shows them that this person is a law-abiding citizen and does not violate the law of his country. Now look at this. For the healthcare certificate and for the character check, this information must not be older than 6 months. Now, if you had submitted maybe a healthcare certificate or a character certificate while applying for a different visa category, you don't need to submit it again while applying for permanent residency in New Zealand because they already have it in their file. Even if it's as old as 2 years, you don't need to submit another one. You need to provide proof of your status of resident visa in New Zealand. You need to provide proof that your resident visa is still active and not expired. Now, if your resident visa has been expired for less than 3 months, you can also still put in a permanent residence visa application. However, if it is expired beyond 3 months, then you shouldn't even try to put in permanent residence visa application because you're going to be denied. And your resident visa needs to be on an active passport, international passport. It needs to be on an active passport. If your passport has expired and you got a new one, then you need to apply for a transfer of visa for your existing visa to be transferred to the new passport. Do not submit an active resident visa on an expired passport. You're going to be denied. You also need to show evidence that you've not violated the terms and conditions of your resident visa. Usually, if you get granted resident visa, the period of time, I think it's usually 184 days in a year over a 2-year period, or for people who are applying to come into New Zealand to start a business, or they've acquired a business in New Zealand, it could be as low as 41 days in a year. You need to be in New Zealand for this period of time before you can start your international travels. People who do not stay in New Zealand for this period of time and then start to travel are in violation of the terms and conditions of your residence visa. These people usually get denied when they put in a permanent resident visa application. So you need to show evidence, proof that you've never violated the terms and conditions of your resident visa. You need to show proof that you're committed to New Zealand. You need to show information. You need to show proof that you're committed to this relationship. That you're going to be an outstanding citizen that's going to contribute towards the betterment of the country or the economy of New Zealand. And you can show this, number one, by buying a business in this country. You can show this by buying a business. And if you're buying a business or you're buying a part stake in that business, the part stake needs to be at least 25% ownership. It needs to show that you have at least 25% stake in that business. Now, if you do buy a business, then you need to show the deed of ownership of that business. You need to show an audit statement from an accountant, a chartered accountant in New Zealand that shows that your account, your business account has been audited or is in process. You need to show this. This is going to be the documents that you're going to show as proof. Now, if you stay in New Zealand for a period of 184 days, per year for a 2-year period. So it's going to be 184 days this year and 184 days in the next year. Then you don't need to show any other proof of commitment. That is commitment enough that you are committed to staying in New Zealand for a long term. Now there are other ways to show commitment, such as being invested in the economy by buying shares, by buying bonds or some type of equity instruments, and by investing a full sum of 1 million New Zealand dollars or that sum in installments over a period of time. There are other ways that you can use to show commitment to New Zealand. You can find this in our website. I don't want to go into all that because it's a lot and it will take up all our time. This video is already long as it is already. So if you want to get this information, I suggest you go to the Fuse Chronicles website and check the article on how to apply for PR in New Zealand for immigrants. It's right there and you can learn more about how to show commitment or documents that you need to submit to show that you're committed to a long stay in New Zealand. I touched about this topic earlier. It has to do with your partner and dependent. They have to put in an application together with you, who is the primary applicant, or put in an application after you. Now, these are all requirements that you need. These are all requirements that you need to be eligible to put in a permanent resident visa application. Now, don't forget, you need to have a resident visa, and a resident visa is a work visa, and work visa means you need to have a sponsor, an employer in New Zealand before you can be granted resident visa ship. So guys, this is literally all you need to know about how to get permanent residency in New Zealand. And let me know what you guys think about permanent residency in New Zealand. Do you think it's a daunting process? Do you think it could be streamlined better to make it easier for people to access going forward? Let me know your thoughts down in the comment section below. And if you think the comment section is too public, is too open, you can hit me up on any one of our social media accounts. We're active on 3 of those. We're active on Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter. And our all handles on all 3 platforms are the same. It's up there at Fuse Chronicles. If this video was helpful to you in some way, shape, or form, don't be a stranger. Come on, go down, smash the subscribe button, particularly if you like this sort of content. We usually drop this sort of content twice every week on Mondays and on Thursdays. And while you're down there, why don't you click the bell icon, which is just right next to the subscribe button, which keeps you notified when we drop valuable videos like this in the future. And if this video was helpful to you in some way, shape, or form, come on now, don't be shy. Give us a thumbs up. Give this video a like because it helps us more than you can ever imagine. It tells the YouTube algorithm that you found this video interesting. You're going to find more people just like you all around the world to show these videos to. And if you have family and friends who are in New Zealand or are interested in getting a resident visa, which will eventually lead them to get a permanent residency in New Zealand, why don't you share this video with them so that they stay guided on the right decision to make going forward. And don't forget, like I always say, happiness is a choice. It's your choice to be happy, not the place of your family members or your friends to make you happy. It's your place to make yourself happy. So why don't you choose to be happy today? Getting a permanent residency in New Zealand or securing a resident visa in New Zealand is going to make you happy. By all means, why don't you do this so that you maintain your happiness going forward? And if you want to know, if you really want to know, maybe New Zealand is not for you. You want to know how to secure a work visa sponsor to the Netherlands, which is a country in Europe, then why don't you click on that video that's going to take you to the information how to get sponsors. I go into this process showing you 2 methods that you can use to get sponsors in 10 minutes to grant you sponsorship and sponsor your work visa for you to come to the Netherlands to work. And until the next time, I remain your boy Fuse. Have an awesome week ahead. Bye bye for now.